Hi there, it's time for another edition of You Can Make It. I had a request emailed to me to make macaroni and cheese, so that's what we're going to do today. To make macaroni and cheese, we're going to start out with our first main ingredient, substantial quantity of wine taken internally. And then the ingredients for the macaroni and cheese. We have a pound box of macaroni, we have half a cup of flour, we have milk, butter, salt and pepper, 3 cups of cubed Velveeta processed cheese, 1 cup of cubed old cheddar cheese, 3/4 a cup of nicely sliced pepperoni, and 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs. And that's all you'll need. To start making the macaroni and cheese, you're going to have to cook the macaroni first. So about half to 2/3 fill a medium-sized saucepan and put a bit of salt in it. The salt just makes it boil a bit faster and to a slightly higher temperature. The lid on and put it on high to get it up to a boil. While you're here, you can preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, because we are going to be baking this macaroni. Once the waters come to a roiling boil, you'll take the lid off, and that's called a rolling boil with lots of bubbles breaking the surface. And you'll add the 1 pound box of macaroni. After you add it, the boiling will stop because the macaroni cools it down, and you're going to stir the macaroni until the water starts to boil again. The reason you do that is so the macaroni won't stick together. So we'll just keep giving it a stir here until the water comes back to a full boil. Now that the water's returned to a full boil, the motion of the water boiling generally stops the macaroni from sticking together, so you can stop stirring it and put the lid back on. After 6 minutes, it's time to check to see if your macaroni's done. And the easiest way to do that is to just pull one of the pieces of macaroni out, give it a blow on it to cool it down, and then taste it to see if it's cooked your liking. Most people like their pasta al dente, which means it's still got a little bit of chew in it. This is just perfect right now. So with the pasta being perfect, you've got to get the hot water off of it. You do that by putting a colander in a sink and just taking the pot of pasta and some oven mitts and pouring the pasta into the colander. Hopefully you lined it up better on the grain than I did there. Just get it so it sits normally. And pour the pasta into the colander and let it sit for all the water to drain out. And that's all there is to that. For the next part I'm doing here, the normal thing would be to use a saucepan, but I'm going to use a large frying pan so that you can see how I make the cheese sauce to go on it, and you can see what the materials look like when they're cooking up. The first thing you're going to do is add 1/2 cup of butter. That's 1/4 pound of butter into the fry pan. And that'll take a few seconds to melt because I've just got it over medium heat. The key thing here is not to brown the butter. You just want it to melt. And as I say, that'll take a few seconds. Okay, as the last little piece of butter starts to melt, you just stir it up so it's all melted. And as I say, you just do a medium-high heat so you're not browning it. Get it to the point where it's all melted, and you're going to add 1/2 cup of flour. Just sprinkle it over the butter and stir it in until it mixes together. If you want to start learning fancy French cooking terms, this is called a roux, which is a mixture of fat and flour. So you're just going to mix it up till there's no lumps. And it's nice and smooth. Now the reason you do the thing with the roux is by mixing it with the fat, what you're doing is you're making sure it won't make lumps when you add a liquid. So now that they're all nice and smoothly mixed together, we're going to stir in very slowly 3½ cups of milk. And you just add that a little bit at a time, stirring all the time. Just put it into the roux and keep stirring as it heats up. The roux will dissolve nicely into the milk. And And now that you've got all the milk in, if you want to, you can turn the heat up just a tad to make it heat up a bit quicker. And you're just going to slowly keep stirring this until that milk mixture is going to thicken. This is also the time when you add the seasonings. So you're going to add a half a teaspoon of salt, exactly, and 1 teaspoon of pepper. Just a little bit more there. I like pepper. And again, you're just going to keep stirring this until the sauce thickens up nicely. As I've been stirring this for 3 or 4 minutes now, and it's nicely thickened up, as you can see. The flour has thickened the milk into a nice creamy white sauce. So to make it a cheese sauce, now is the point where we add 3 cups of cubed Velveeta processed cheese. That's about 1 pound. You just throw that in there. And you're also going to add about 1 cup of cubed old cheddar cheese. The Velveeta gives it texture, the cheddar cheese gives it a bit more of a sharper taste. And you're just going to stir that until it all melts together into a nice cheese sauce. So as you can see, the cheese is all melted and the sauce is nice and smooth. And just a little bit of advice at this point, if you stop, you actually have a wonderful cheese sauce to use on cauliflower or broccoli or anything else you want cheese sauce on. Of course, we're going to be making macaroni and cheese out of it. Okay, now that the macaroni and the sauce is cooked, all we have to do is put the macaroni and cheese together. So we'll start off with the casserole dish, and you just want to give it a spray with vegetable spray so stuff doesn't stick all over it. And put your macaroni in it. And there's your cooked macaroni into the bowl. And then we're going to pour the cheese sauce over the top. Just get it stirred in there. So once you've got it in, just make sure you stir it to get a good even coating on there. And while you're stirring it in, we're going to add something optional that I like in my macaroni and cheese, and that's about 3/4 of a cup of pepperoni. So I've got the cheese sauce all mixed in with the pepperoni and the macaroni, and we'll just spread it out to get it nice and smooth. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take 1/4 of a cup of fine breadcrumbs and just sprinkle it all over the casserole. It just gives it a nice little crunchy top. And by the way, that wasn't 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs, my apologies, it was 1/2 cup. Once you got the 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs on it, it's a good idea to dot the breadcrumbs with a little bit of butter. That helps it to brown up. So just take some butter and just break some little pieces of butter all over the top of your casserole. So now that we've got everything all mixed up and the butter on top of the breadcrumbs and everything, we're going to fire it into our 350-degree oven for 30 minutes. And as you can see, it's nicely browned and bubbly and full of hot sauces, just like you'd like. So you just have to let it sit and cool for about 10 minutes before you serve it so that you don't get hot sauce all over the place. Macaroni and cheese like my mother used to make, couldn't be better.